David Rudman became such a puppet performing prodigy, but I'd never imagined what he'd be doing when he's not performing on Sesame Street or anything associated with the Muppets franchise. He and his brother Adam co-founded Spiffy Pictures to produce children's shows probably of their own vision, some of which has puppetry involved. And among these particular shows is Bunnytown, the show with the concept of a suburban place populated by bunnies. I find it a great concept for a children's show. I also think that of all the shows from that studio, this is one of them having the greatest concept. During the time my family and I had cable, I found myself watching it on Disney Channel, even though I was a bit too old for it. I guess I ended up watching it because of the puppetry, much less David Rudman getting my attention. Needless to say, though, I wasn't getting a lot out of it. I don't know who could have possibly liked this, let alone as it is. But this show was considered good by a decent amount of people from what I gather. But those people who said whatever they said about it being good, I honestly don't believe them. If the show is as good as they say, couldn't it last any longer than one season worth 26 episodes? I believe it's the elements of the show that did not work, albeit among other things, which the short run must have to do with. The bunnies themselves being puppets, and in such models that are easy to make out their bodies, and with their furs in bright colors, and the surrounding scenery looking like paper cutouts, have got to be like among the best elements to appeal to the target audience of young children. Now, obviously, the bunnies in this show are supposedly meant to be viewed as people. But that shouldn't mean they get to be anything thought of, especially for what the title of the show should mean to define. The King Bunny and his court makes me feel uncertain if Bunnytown is actually a kingdom. It should have been a mayor bunny. And pirate bunnies, cave bunnies, the super bunny, and the space bunny kind of makes it feel like some other show. The inventor bunny and the farmer Gramps bunny are among the only characters who make the most sense for the show. There could have, and in fact should have, been more bunnies seen taking more town-related occupations. Secondly, when the bunnies are on screen, there's no fully developed story. It's just one segment after the other, and a lot of them are rather short. Some have one small plotline integrated. Some others are parts of a bit bigger plotline and are separated between other segments. Whatever the purpose of it was, I bet it wasn't working well for the children watching, especially because they would have had no idea who or what they should be focusing on to even begin with. Not to mention that most of the episode titles are rather vague. And the song Bunnytown Hop is great to dance to when it's on, but couldn't there be more songs from that band? I mean, yes, there's also making music, but is that all? And there's only a heptad of people credited performing the bunnies. Even with David Rudman among them, I doubt a lot of their roles in the show are memorable. And how are so many characters performed by such a small group? You'd think there'd be more than who is credited. But while this is mainly a puppetry show, there'd still be humans in live-action scenery. During each episode, one bunny, and the same one at that, would watch two comical men, Red and Fred, figuring out solutions in their activities, and then sports reporter Pinky Pinkerton hosts Super Silly Sports, where there's a sport event that's only as amusing as it ever is. That, and the latter, is the only segment featuring humans where you hear talking. Maybe the plot lines of the human segments are not as bad as that of the bunny segments, even though they don't follow the same theme as the bunny segments in an episode. So undoubtedly, there were problems in this show for what the episodes had and how they went, and not just with the writing. And this video requires that I say, while it has things that work, it also has more things that don't. But with that said, here's how I think it should have worked out to be its best. And of course, I'm also applying whatever works okay as they are. For starters, each episode should have begun and ended with the main featured story, even while still being separated into parts or acts. And in between acts of the story, there could have still been segments featuring Red and Fred and Super Silly Sports, as well as a song of the episode, especially as there's a beneficial function behind that. Also, acknowledging that there's meant to be no dialogue in the Red and Fred segments, something should have been done in the first episode for the audience to get their names without having to find it out in the credits, and especially to come to know who's Red and who's Fred. In each main story, as there still could have been different characters to focus on, it still has to look and feel like it's in a town. So the characters should have contributed to that. There already have been the farmer bunnies and the inventor bunny, and I think at least one teacher bunny. There could have been characters like doctor bunnies, a mail carrier bunny, a librarian bunny, at least one baker bunny, and even some shopkeeper bunnies. Basically, different jobs related to a town should have been represented in various episodes. Occasionally, there could have also been episodes about special events or special days that the bunnies have in their town. And in each episode, there should have been an organized order for acts of the episode's plotline and the segments. It could have gone like this. First the first act, then a Red and Fred segment, then the second act, then a song of the episode, then the third act, and then a super silly sports segment, and the final act to end an episode. Now, the song for each episode should have corresponded to the plot, and while it doesn't have to prominently feature the band that performed Bunnytown Hop, although those bunnies could still be featured providing music for other bunnies singing, more often than not. And the bunnies singing don't have to be the same bunnies involved in the episode's story. Also in each episode, by describing featured jobs and their functions and roles in the town, as well as the roles of the residential bunnies, the intended lessons to be taught are community-based, as well as proper communication skills and social development skills. So in that sense, this show could have functioned more like an edutainment series, which makes it more valuable for the children. And there still could have also been something to bring out a good laugh regarding the characters and the storyline, but only when it's called for. And since the show is to feature talented puppet performers, I personally don't see it a bad thing to have a lot of famous performers casted, especially for their iconic voices. Performers active during 2007 are considered here. There was Mac Wilson, Victoria Willing, and Nigel Plaskett performing in the show. And they used to perform for Mopatop Shop. So they could have performed bunnies having similar voices of Mopatop, Puppy Duck, and Moosey Mouse respectively. And there even was Eric Jacobson. So he could have given his Frank Oz voices similar to Sam the Eagle, Bert, and Grover to that many bunnies. Kevin Clash could have given voices of characters such as Elmo, Kingston, and Clifford. Martin Robinson could have been given roles for the voices he could make. Fran Brill could have given the voice of Prairie Dawn to a child bunny, and a voice similar to Zoe to an adult bunny. I wouldn't gripe about Carmen Osbar giving a voice similar to Rosita to a bunny. The voice of Elizabeth by Stephanie D'Abruzzo is perfect to give a young, enlivened female bunny. Meanwhile, the voice of Bear by Noel McNeil is perfect for a mature male bunny. Peter Lenz could have given great voices to, at most, 10 bunnies. I consider Joey Mazzarino among David's closest to work alongside, and he has some great voices that can be useful for a few roles. Even Jerry Nelson had voices that are perfect for certain roles. And even Leslie Carrera Rudolph, Jennifer Barnhart, Matt Vogel, John Tartaglia, Pam Arciero, Tyler Bunch, and Tim Lagasse deserve to be casted for specific roles. And David Rudman himself could have performed the Mayor Bunny, among having other roles. Not to mention the Mayor Bunny could have had the most appearances in the show. You know, the above-mentioned people had a lot of experience with David at Muppet Studios, the Jim Henson Company, Sesame Workshop, and whichever other puppet production places he worked at. So they could have well collaborated. Perhaps this show ought to be the closest that selected performers of Sesame Street could have ever gotten to Disney. Finally, while the bunnies themselves can still look brightly colorful, the eyes should have been easier to tell, and their noses should have been a natural black or dark gray. Seriously, I don't sit well with the dotted pupil eyes or the blue noses. I have absolutely no problem of the furs of bunnies being in the primary and secondary colors, but I think those colors should have been vibrant. Most specifically, the bunnies with orange, yellow, green, and blue fur should have been easier to make out. Maybe there could have been more colors for the furs. Is it bad to have bunnies whose fur are darker green and darker blue? And I can't find any issue with having all the pink bunnies be female. It's just that there shouldn't be only pink bunnies being female. There could have even been cyan bunnies, lavender bunnies, indigo bunnies, and scarlet bunnies. Not that there need to be too much of them, but not rare either. All of the above considered, I can see that the show would have been more successful that way. Do the scientific research or ask something with an AI brain, and results might astonish you. As for how long the show should last, in the original run, it doesn't have to last too long, but it should be enough seasons with enough episodes that educates about everything about a town and being in a town. I think it deserves to have more than 100 episodes, and for more than just so that the show could be rebroadcasted in syndication. But otherwise, if you think about it, there actually is more than 100 lessons to learn based on the suggested curriculum. Now, I don't look like a particular person to discuss preschool shows, but I really think this is one that had potential, and therefore really should have had a lot more scrutiny. I really think Bunnytown deserved to be a great show, and among the most successful preschool children's shows on Disney television, alongside the other shows at the time such as Higglytown Heroes, Little Einsteins, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Handy Manny, and My Friends Tigger and Pooh, as well as such that feature puppetry next to Bear in the Big Blue House. Maybe the location is kooky as the theme song says, and I guess the same can be said for the show named after it and featuring it. But I would argue that they're so in a not good way, especially for the audience it's for. The show as it is, exactly who does it appeal to? Let alone what kind of children, if not just those whose favorite animal is a rabbit. But regardless, it really needed necessary work to work. It's not often that I would find out a well-skilled puppet performer like David Rudman, who successfully contributed to places that relied on his expertise, would start doing his own thing. But it's not easy to describe the shows from the place he does it, including Bunnytown, as good as the shows he was ever only casted in. For me, Bunnytown sounded like a good idea for a show, but it wasn't laid out as good as it was supposed to. But I believe my layout for that show could have made it a lot better than as it turned out. And one worth being for the appeal children who could and would watch it to enjoy watching it and grow up with their good memories of it. And that's a show worth calling
Spiffy.
Now I turn this over to you. Have you watched Bunnytown? What's your experience with it? Do you think it deserved to be a better show? And what would you have liked to see in it? Hop to it in the comments, and thanks for watching.